He'd stand up when anyone entered the room. Didn't matter if they were rich, poor, a leader, or a servant. He never demanded special treatment. His generosity, legendary, and not just to his own community. If a neighboring region had a famine, he'd send aid, no questions asked. His relationship with his companions was based on trust and mutual respect. He consulted them before making big decisions, this whole concept of shura, or collective consultation. And here's the key. They weren't yes men. They could question him, bring different ideas, and he welcomed it. Truth mattered more than ego. And when it came to women's rights, man, he was centuries ahead. He gave women inheritance, rights, the right to education, the right to consent in marriage, stuff much of the world wouldn't even consider until way later. And he completely banned things like female infanticide, which was common before Islam. He made dignity and protection, for women a central value. His love for kids was incredible too. He'd play with them, greet them warmly, and even shorten prayers if he heard a baby crying, just so the mother wouldn't be stressed. Think about that. He's leading the community, delivering divine revelation, handling political and military strategy, and still so tuned in to the feelings of one crying baby. That's compassion on another level. He pushed for freeing slaves, breaking down class divisions, and teaching that no one is better than anyone else except in piety and good character. If the world actually lived by that man, so many of our modern problems would disappear. And here's the thing. He balanced mercy with justice perfectly. He forgave easily, but when it came to protecting society from harm, he enforced the law. That balance kept the community safe and fair. His final pilgrimage, his last sermon, it's like a timeless guidebook. Justice, women's rights, racial, equality, moral values, it's all in there. And the fact that this was his last public address makes it even more powerful. He knew his time was short, and he made sure his last words to humanity were about unity and fairness. When he passed away, it wasn't just losing a leader, it was losing a friend, a mentor, a guide. But here's the beauty. What he built didn't collapse without him. It lasted because it wasn't about him. It was about the principles. And those principles are still changing lives today. And man, when you really connect the dots, you realize this isn't just religious history. This is a full-on blueprint for building a society that's just, compassionate, and resilient, no matter the time or place. And the more I study it, the more I'm convinced that if people today followed even half of what he taught, the world would be a completely different place. Man. One thing that keeps hitting me the more I read about Prophet Muhammad is how he never let personal grudges mess with his judgment. Even when people had wronged him, like badly wronged him, he didn't let revenge cloud his decisions. That's rare, bro, especially for someone who had so much power later in life. Before prophethood, he was already known in Mecca as a trusted problem solver, the kind of guy tribes would call to mediate disputes because they knew he was fair. And that skill only got sharper after he became a prophet because now he had a divine framework for justice, consistent, impartial, unshakable. One famous story is the Black Stone incident. Different tribes were fighting over who would place it back in the Kaaba. After reconstruction, it was about to get ugly, like bloodshed ugly. He comes in, puts the stone on a cloth, asks each tribe's leader to lift a corner, and then he himself places it. Boom. Dispute gone. Everyone walks away feeling honored. That's genius-level conflict resolution right there. And that same approach carried over to Medina. He would listen to every side before making a decision. No favoritism, no bias. People trusted that his rulings were for the greater good, not for personal gain. That kind of trust, man, it's the foundation of any strong society. Even with his closest companions, he never acted like he was above them. He fought alongside them in battle, dug trenches, carried bricks, shared the same hardships. That's why loyalty to him wasn't bought with gold or titles. It was earned through respect. And get this, he was approachable. Like, you could literally walk up to him with a problem and he'd listen. No giant guards blocking the way, no make an appointment nonsense. That open-door attitude meant small problems never had the chance to grow into big ones. He constantly taught that good character mattered more than wealth or lineage, that the most honored in God's eyes are the ones with the best conduct. Man. Imagine if that was the metric we used for respect today instead of bank accounts and social status. The world would be unrecognizable. And here's what breaks so many stereotypes. His leadership wasn't untouchable or disconnected from the struggles of ordinary people. He lived them. He carried other people's burdens. Leadership to him wasn't about perks. It was about service. The more you study his methods, the more you realize they're timeless. His strategies for building trust, maintaining unity, inspiring people, they're not locked to the 7th century. They work anywhere, anytime. And that's why his influence hasn't just survived. It's actually grown stronger over time as more people discover the truth about who he was. Another detail that blows my mind. He wasn't some harsh, unapproachable ruler. His companions could laugh with him, ask him direct questions, even suggest different approaches. And he welcomed it. That kind of humility in leadership? Crazy rare. And then there's his wisdom in creating solutions where everyone felt respected, like the way he involved all tribes in placing the black stone, avoiding a war just by giving everyone a sense of honor, or the way he'd negotiate peace even if the terms looked unfavorable in the short run, because he saw the bigger picture. His vision was always long-term. He knew unity was more valuable than momentary wins, and he proved it again and again. Whether it was building Medina's constitution, handling enemy tribes, or teaching his followers that the real strength is in self-control, not domination. What's crazy is, his methods weren't just good for the 600s. They're literally case studies in modern leadership, conflict resolution, and community building. Business schools, military academies, leadership courses, they could all use his example. And the thing is, people who actually take the time to study his life without bias, they almost always walk away impressed. Even non-Muslim historians have written about his balance of mercy and justice, his ability to unite fractured groups without brute force, his deep consistency between public image and private life. That's the thing that sticks with me most, his consistency. The way he lived was the same way he taught. No double standards, no rules for you, exceptions for me. And that's why his followers trusted him enough to carry his message across the world after he was gone, without armies forcing conversions, but just by living the values he taught. His name is one of the most mentioned in human history. Yet, so many people don't actually know the real story. They've only heard stereotypes. But when you strip all that away and look at the authentic accounts, what you find is, man, one of the most remarkable lives ever lived. And maybe that's why his legacy hasn't faded for over 14 centuries. Because it's not built on myths, it's built on real, timeless principles. Things like fairness, patience, humility, service, compassion. Things the world still desperately needs today. The more I dig into his life, the more I see it. His example is a blueprint, not just for Muslims, not just for religious people, but for anyone who wants to lead, to build something that lasts, to create positive change without losing their soul in the process. And dude, when you think about it, that's the rarest thing of all. Man, I've been diving deep into the life of Prophet Muhammad lately. And honestly, the more I read, the more I'm just blown away. Like, bro, the depth of his life, the way his actions shaped the entire world in ways I never even thought about. It's insane. So, he was born in Mecca around 570 AD, in this time when society was just completely wrapped up in tribal rivalries, ignorance, and idol worship. And from the very start, life just threw him challenge after challenge. Both his parents died when he was young, so he grew up an orphan, first under his grandfather's care, then later his uncle. But here's the crazy part. Even as a kid, people could tell there was something different about him. He was honest, fair, dependable, like that. One person you know you can trust with anything. That's why they literally gave him the title Al-Amin, meaning the trustworthy. And this was way before he ever claimed to be a prophet. He worked in trade, traveled around, did business in different regions, and he was just known for doing everything with absolute honesty and fairness. No cheating, no shady deals. His reputation just kept growing, and eventually he married Khadijah, this incredibly wealthy and respected merchant who admired him for his character. Their marriage? Built on love, mutual respect, and trust. Rare stuff, man. Then, at the age of 40, he's out meditating in the cave of Hira, just trying to get away from all the noise and corruption of society when, boom, something happens that changes his life forever. The angel Gabriel appears, tells him to read, and that right there, that moment becomes the very first revelation of the Quran. And from there, man, for 23 years, more revelations keep coming, covering everything from justice, mercy, and compassion to laws and principles for living an ethical life. But of course, not everyone was happy about this. The Meccan elites? Oh man, they hated it, because his message directly challenged their power, their greed, and the whole idol worship economy they were running. They mocked him, boycotted his followers, tortured the weak, and even plotted to kill him. And yet, this is the part that blows my mind. He stayed patient, calm, totally focused on his mission. When things got too dangerous, he migrated to Medina. And here's the thing, he didn't just survive there. He built this brand new community that was all about equality, justice, and protecting everyone, no matter their religion, ethnicity, or social status. He even put together the Constitution of Medina, which gave rights to Muslims, Jews, and others, literally one of the first multi-faith governance systems in history. And he wasn't just some spiritual leader locked away from the real world. He was also a political strategist, a military commander, and still somehow he showed mercy even to his enemies. In war, he set rules to protect women, children, civilians, and even animals, centuries ahead of his time. And here's the kicker. He forgave people who had tried to kill him, people who tortured his companions, destroyed his property. He still chose reconciliation over revenge. In his personal life, the guy was unbelievably humble. Slept on a simple mat, repaired his own clothes, helped with chores, and never acted above anyone else, even though he was the most influential man in the region. His compassion for the poor, the orphaned, the oppressed, it was unmatched. There are countless stories about him giving away whatever he had, without hesitation. By the time he passed away at 63, Arabia had completely transformed, socially, politically, spiritually. And his message? It just kept spreading far beyond the desert, inspiring leaders, scholars, everyday people for centuries. Learning about him has seriously changed the way I think about leadership, morality, and staying true to your principles. Because honestly, the real story of Prophet Muhammad is way more inspiring than the stereotypes people are fed. Once you see the truth, man, you can't unsee it. What really fascinates me is how, despite gaining so much power and influence, he never let it corrupt him. That's rare in history. Power almost always changes people, but he stayed grounded, humble, focused on his mission to guide humanity toward justice and compassion. No palaces, no luxury lifestyle. He lived among the people, ate simple food, wore simple clothes. That humility? It made his message even stronger, because it wasn't about him. It was about the truth. Even when people tried to insult or provoke him, he responded with patience and wisdom. One story that really hits me is this woman who used to throw garbage on him every single day. And then one day she didn't. So what does he do? He goes to check on her, finds out she's sick, offers to help, and that kindness completely changes her heart. In Medina, his leadership was so ahead of its time. He made sure non-Muslims had safety and rights. He built a system where disputes were settled fairly, no matter who was involved. His focus? Always on minimizing harm and keeping peace. Like the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. On paper, it looked like a loss. But strategically, it was a genius move that avoided bloodshed and set up a bigger win later. And his teachings on strength? He said it's not about overpowering others. It's about controlling yourself and protecting those who can't protect themselves. He was gentle with kids, encouraged education for both men and women, totally revolutionary for that era. He valued knowledge so much, he said, seeking it was a duty for every believer, regardless of gender. He warned against arrogance, greed, oppression, promoted charity, forgiveness, honesty. Even after full days of responsibility, he'd spend long nights in prayer, showing this insane balance between the spiritual and the practical. And honestly, I think that's why his influence lasted this long. You look at his life and realize, real leadership isn't domination, it's service. Everything he did, from family life to politics, followed that same pattern of integrity and purpose. And I think that's why anyone who truly studies his life can't help but respect him, no matter their religion. It's almost impossible to go through his biography and not be moved by the balance of strength and compassion in every decision he made. Oh man. Another thing that completely blows my mind about Prophet Muhammad is how he handled crisis situations with such calm, strategic thinking. Most leaders in history, when they're cornered, they either lash out or they completely crumble under pressure. But not him. He would pause, reflect, and then choose a path that, in the long run, actually benefited everyone, even if it meant taking a temporary loss. Like in the early years in Medina, when hostile tribes were literally surrounding the city, he didn't just say, "Let's build walls and hide." Nah, man. He built alliances, real, solid alliances. He included Jewish tribes, other non-Muslim groups, everyone who would help create a strong, united front. And when the Battle of the Trench happened, this was huge, he introduced a military tactic Arabia had never seen before, digging a trench. Totally threw the enemy off, neutralized their advantage completely, without massive bloodshed. That's next-level visionary thinking right there. And here's the thing. He wasn't just thinking about winning battles. He was thinking about after the battle, too. Most conquerors in history, they punish, they enslave, they destroy. But when he finally returned to Mecca victorious after years of persecution, he didn't go in swinging. He offered amnesty to almost everyone. People who had fought him, tortured his friends, literally tried to kill him. He forgave them. And that dude, that turned enemies into allies overnight. It wasn't about building an empire. It was about building a moral framework. And that's way harder than just conquering land, because it means changing people's hearts and minds. His last sermon, man, that was like a mic drop moment for humanity. In just a few minutes, he laid down principles we still haven't fully mastered today. Racial equality, economic fairness, women's rights, the sanctity of life. And remember, this was over 1,400 years ago. That's how ahead of his time he was. And here's a detail people don't talk about enough, his compassion for animals. Yeah, you heard that right. He literally told his followers to never overwork animals, never harm them unnecessarily, to feed and care for them. That's in the 7th century, man. And he also warned against environmental destruction. Don't waste water even if you're by a river. Protect trees. Take care of nature. You read that today, and it feels like it was written for our modern climate crisis. And here's what's rare. His public life and private life matched perfectly. So many historical figures, they've got a public image, and then behind closed doors, they're a totally different person. But everything about his lifestyle reflected the values he taught. And that's why historians who approach his story without bias often end up deeply impressed, even if they don't share his faith. Learning about his life like this makes me realize real leadership isn't about personal glory. It's about creating lasting good for other people. And that's exactly what he did. He left behind systems that still work, values that still matter, and lessons that still apply. And what really gets me is how personal he was with people. Leaders at his level usually have this huge wall between them and ordinary folks. But he broke that wall completely. He'd sit with them, eat with them, listen to their problems, and not just nod, but actually do something to help right away. People respected him, sure, but they also loved him like family.